Welcome to the show. I just got back. I just literally was on the PA Turnpike for the last 5 hours, the greatest turnpike in the world. No question about it.
It's better than the Jersey Turnpike.
Um, Better rest stops, yes, than the Jersey Turnpike. I'll give the
Better
rest
than the
stops.
Walt Whitman. I like how they named the New Jersey after famous like New Jerseyans. The
Oh,
Walt
I
Whitman,
know.
the
Yep,
Walt
like
Whitman rest stop, the FDR.
Joyce
I mean,
Kilmer. Joyce Kilmer, right? My Joyce Kilmer.
right. The
Isn't there
Lombardi.
isn't there a stop? Isn't there a rest stop on the Jersey Turnpike that's named after Howard Stern?
I don't know.
That I think is a myth. I don't think that's true.
I think
I mean, at least I have. I mean, yes, I haven't been to any of the rest stops. I've spent way too much time at the Jersey Turnpike rest stops, though. I will tell you that. I'm sure you have too, Dan. But
Oh yeah.
that's one of the few places you can find a good Roy Rogers anymore.
Yeah. Or it's funny. I used to do a hockey card show in Newington, Connecticut when I was a kid, and right next door it was in the Shriners Club of Newington, and right next door, actually Nick Bonino, Newington, Connecticut, but right next door was Roy Rogers, and we used to call it Wa Roger, since it was hockey.
Yeah.
Who's going to Wa Roger? Who's going? That was always
Really good roast beef sandwiches, like
really
before,
good roast. I think better than Arby's because I like how you can customize them. They get that
Yes,
fixing
I'm with you.
bar.
Until Arby's introduced the greatest roast beef sandwich of all time, which is the roast beef and cheddar from Arby's,
Yes, that's phenomenal. That's
which
hard to
has
beat.
surpassed Roy Rogers. But
Yes.
back in the day, they didn't have that. It was just Roy Rogers or Arby's, straight up roast beef sandwiches. And yeah, Roy Rogers was better.
I have a friend, and you know who you are, Chuck, that used to drive like 4 or 5 stops on the New York State Thruway to go and get chicken at a Roy Rogers chicken because there was none in Buffalo. He would basically drive to Syracuse to get Roy Rogers chicken.
That doesn't sound like a close drive.
Now, did you guys have Geno's?
Geno's Pizza?
No, Geno's Burgers.
No,
It was like
no.
No.
people don't. I think this was now Kentucky Fried Chicken. Before there were Kentucky Fried Chickens,
Yes.
they were at Geno's. That's where you would get
don't
Kentucky
remember
Fried
Geno's.
Chicken.
Don't think we ever had those.
I think so. I think there was just an area around here, but
Did
Geno's was
you?
really funny. It was like, I love everything about Geno's, and because Geno's is everything good or something like that is the slogan. So the other day I put out a little Twitter that I said, I love everything about blank, and blank is everything good. Just to see if anybody would get it, because I was doing little clues as to some of my rumors I might be coming up with, and people got it. The Geno's, only people from around here, so I guess it is. I guess it was a local thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Anyway,
let's start into Gordie Howe a little bit because
do you want to start the show, or
yeah, let's start the show. We'll do the show. It's fine. Ty's joining us shortly, so let's here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Friday, June 10th, 2016.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Dan Petru.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the Hockeybuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time. And we're going to just start off today. Obviously, we have a lot to talk about with last night's game and what's going on in the finals. We have some rumors to get into. But the first thing we got to talk about is Gordie Howe's passing. And what a crazy week, to lose Muhammad Ali and Gordie Howe within a span of a few days. I mean, those are two of the biggest icons in sports history.
Yeah.
I mean,
this year has really stunk.
Yeah.
I mean,
It really has.
in terms of Ak and I both. I mean, Dan, I'm sure you like music as well, but Ak and I are really into music, and
yeah.
Prince dying, Fry dying, and now
David Bowie.
David Bowie, yeah.
I mean, just dying. I'm not trying to miss anybody, but two massive sports icons. I mean,
Yogi Berra was this year too, wasn't he?
Right. Yeah.
He may have been. I mean,
I thought he was January, February. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, if not, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, arguably the biggest name in boxing history, or at least recent boxing history. You could say Joe Louis or Jack Dempsey, maybe in the first half.
No, I think you're safe saying the greatest of all time.
And
Yeah.
Gordie Howe, I would say for the first half century of, or at least pre-expansion, he's the biggest name in hockey history, and even his carried on. So it's just really, 2016 has really been a sucky year. It really has.
Is this just getting old? That's what I wonder. Is it sucky, or is it just that we get old? The older you get, the more people you love die. I mean, it's just.
It seems weird this year. It seems like just a collection, like a spurt where it's all. It's all coming together. I'm wearing my 1980 style Whalers Gordie Howe T-shirt.
Awesome.
It says G Howe on the back because there were
awesome.
multiple Howes that played.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a great tribute.
Didn't they have their full names on the back?
They did. So some of their jerseys, when they were in the WHA, they had their full names on the back, and then when they went to the NHL, they just had the initial.
Because you remember there was Mark and Marty. So
right.
That's why they had to spell them out.
Those old school New England Whaler jerseys before.
Those are cool.
Those were they're hard. They're impossible to find. The W with the harpoon going through.
Right.
Those are beauts.
I mean, it's funny, I'm just a little bit of Whalers talk for a second because I was talking to somebody else, and it is incredible to me how many people from the Whalers organization are running the NHL. Like it's just.
Yes.
They're all over the place, and they're. I mean, every time someone's hired somewhere, someone more important comes in. It's like, you also were on the. How about connection to the Whalers? I mean, for a team that only existed for what?
20 years, pretty much.
20 years, yeah. I mean, they just have
in the NHL. 16 in the NHL.
Yeah, there's 6 or 7 coaches in the NHL right now that were Whalers.
Right.
It's just crazy, and there's general managers that were Whalers.
Assistant
GMs. I mean, it was
the guys in media like Nick Kiprios, Pierre Maguire. He's everywhere you go. Yeah.
And considering that team really wasn't, was the most successful season the Whalers had. I mean, they got
86. They got to the second round, lost in double overtime to the eventual Cup winners. And Patrick Watt said that was the best team they played. And now that team, you had Francis, you had Dineen, you had Ferraro, you had Quinville,
Turgeon, Dave Babbage, was it
Mike Liu? That team was at Sylvain Cote. That team was absolutely loaded.
That team won the Stratomatic Stanley Cup for me that year. They were that good.
What's that like?
Was Glenn Wesley on that team?
No, he was like 92. I think 92, 93 he came in. That was later.
Yeah, he was older than that. So Ty, welcome Ty.
Hey.
Ty Anderson. We already started the show. That's Ty Anderson. We just wanted to start because I just got off the good old PA Turnpike, and we're going to talk about Gordie Howe for a second here because of what this is. Like I said, I was raised in a Gordie Howe household. Okay, my dad that was his favorite player of all time. We had Gordie Howe pictures. I still have a Gordie Howe jersey over there. He was just everything. And my dad grew up in the original 6 era of hockey, so he would ride his bike to the train station and sometimes ride his bike all the way to Madison Square Garden from South Jersey.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a big time exercise freak, and just to see whenever the Red Wings would come to town. And I mean, I can vouch that when I was a kid, before Steve Yzerman came in, the Red Wings were terrible. And there was a period of time, remember, Mike, that the Red Wings were really bad.
Yes, I call that the John Ogrodnik years.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good. And a little bit of Bob Probert, right?
Reed Larson, Willie Huber.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Mike Blaisdell. Yeah, there was a bunch of immortals on that.
And then Yzerman came on and things turned around, but so I grew up with just Gordie Howe everything, and there's so much so that I found out my dad's true allegiances because to my dad's credit, he got us all season tickets to the Flyers. He liked the Flyers. He was definitely a Flyers fan. Second, but when the Flyers played the Red Wings in '97, that was a big moment in our house, obviously. So we came in and I took my dad to one of the games. I think game 1 or game 2. No, actually game 3 or 4 that was in Philadelphia, and I forget who had the home ice advantage. Anyway, it was one of the first 2 games in Philadelphia, and the Flyers got out to a lead. My dad got so pissed off he left the game after the first period. Just left. I'd driven over them. I'm like, "You sure you went?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm really tired. I've had a big, busy week." So I had to call my friend Eric up, and I'm like, "Eric, I'm at a Stanley Cup final game right now in Philadelphia. Get your butt over here. I got my dad's ticket stub. I'm going to meet you at the gate, and we're going to pull you in." And but that's how much my dad just couldn't stand. But of course, the Red Wings ended up winning that Stanley Cup. So years later, I'm walking. This is about maybe 4 years ago. I'm in the media room in Philadelphia, and I'm walking along, and there's Scoop Cooper, who is one of the greatest guys of all time, Scoop Cooper, who I'm sure is going to write an unbelievable piece that I'm going to put in my blog at some point because he knew Gordie really well. And we knew he would tell. He was keeping me updated on Gordie's health over the last couple of years and stuff we could never write or talk about. And so I'm walking along, and Scoop would always introduce me to people. He would this is Murray Bannerman, or this is Rick Vive, or I would meet people in there that were scouts.
Murray Bannerman, wow.
Yeah, Gordon Murphy. I met these people at Scouts, that here they are, and so I was very typical for me to walk up to a table in the media room when having dinner with my little lunch pail in the hand, and Scoop would be sitting. It's like, hey, and I walk over, so hey, you check here's so and so. So one day I'm walking in, and I'm coming up on Scoop, and I see the back of Scoop's head. He's like, come here, great. He's like, here's my friend Gord. So around to me to shake hands, it turns Gordie Howe. And I'm like, but it's like, yeah, I'm like, of course, my first thing I said, like, hey, Gord, and I just thinking this is Gord, whoever from Canada, yeah, Gord Deneen, it could be, and I'm putting my hand out there, and Gordie Howe, and he's like, yeah, nice to meet you. I've seen your website. It's good. Show me. It's good stuff. I'm like, whoa, oh, man. So I was lost, at that point. I mean, I've been around a lot of famous people in my life, and I've been lucky to have that fortunate thing. But this was somebody who just this took me back, because this was crazy. If my dad had passed away a year before that, if he had known that I was talking to Gordie Howe, that would have been just incredibly crazy. And that Gordie Howe had read my website, just ridiculous, right? So I was sitting there, so I sat down with Gordie Howe, and I had dinner with him and Scoop. Sat across the room, and I told him stories about my dad riding his bike up and how and leaving the game and all that stuff. I told him all the stories I just told you, and he was so pleasant to me. He's like, "Oh, that really means a lot to me. I appreciate that. Thanks for telling me." And I'm like thinking, man, I mean, how many people say things like that to Gordie Howe? I mean, I just felt like a goofy fan, but it really meant a lot to me that he said that, and that he gave me the time to listen to it. And yeah, it was really something. So I'll never forget that moment with me. That just of all the moments I've had, and I can never thank. I thank Scoop every time I see him for this. Practically, I'm like, I thank you so much for introducing me to Gordie Howe. Just like the fact that he wanted to introduce me to him, awesome stuff. So, and then of course our friend Kevin Allen, and then I'll let you guys go. Is really tight with Gordie Howe as well, and wrote a biography of him and another biography called Mr. and Mrs. Hockey, which is a really great book about Gordie Howe and Gordie Howe's wife, who was an amazing person as well. And that's a great book to read. So I'm sure I haven't gotten a chance to talk to Kevin. I sent him a message, but I'm sure he's having he's writing and probably talking to people as we talk. So, and then Mark Howe, finally is a Red Wing scout, but stationed in Philadelphia, so he's always in the press box. And we would see it. Obviously he was a Flyers legend and the best defenseman I think the Flyers ever had. So. And then from Mark Howe, and Mark Howe was kind of a forward, wasn't he? A forward when he was in Hartford a little bit.
He was a rover.
He played both, right?
He played left wing. He played left wing, but he also played
wing,
defense.
but he also played D, and he was all over the place. Man,
there was nobody smoother. I mean, he was the epitome of the smooth skaters,
Yeah.
And last night, ironically enough, I shared an elevator with Paul Coffey, and I'm sitting there, I'm coming down from the game in Pittsburgh, from the press box, and there's Paul Coffey. Who was the only, the other smooth skater of his time. But my gosh, Mark Howe, incredible. So you had a story, Dan, you said?
Yeah, actually, I have some Paul Coffey stories, but they're not nearly as nice as the Gordie Howe story. Let's just put it this way: when Paul Coffey was in Hartford after he was traded for Brendan Shanahan, he was not happy to be there. Let's just let's leave it at that. But anyway, yeah, Gordie Howe a few years ago, he would always be at Bridgeport Sound Tiger games if he was in Connecticut. He was in Connecticut a lot. I know they rented a place there, and if he was around, he was always down there. And then there were two instances. At one time, I went down to the tunnel afterwards. So I was friends with one of the players in the team, and we were just going to go and catch up and talk. And I turned the corner, and I didn't even know he was at the game. A lot of times, he would just go sit up in one of the luxury boxes up there, sometimes by himself, and just hang out and just watch the game. And so all of a sudden, I turn the corner in the tunnel, and I see Gordie grabbing one of the guys in the Sound Tigers, basically showing and saying to him, he's like, look, if he's going to keep forcing you, showing him how to fight. He was like, if he's going to keep forcing you to your right, he's like, let him hit you. He's like, let him grab your right and follow through with the left. He's like, you have a good left. And he's like, he was basically giving him like fighting instructions. And I'm like, here's, an 83-year-old man who's still, it was just something you did not expect to see. And the kids that were there with him were wide-eyed, listening to, hanging on every word that was coming out of his mouth. But a couple of years ago, me and a couple of my friends were at a Bridgeport game, and we heard that he was upstairs, and he was Mr. Hockey. You could just walk up to him and have a conversation with him. He was so approachable, and one of my friends was like, Gordie Howe's here, let's go get our picture taken with him. So I'm like, sure. So we're walking up to go up there, and my friend had never met Gordie Howe before or anything like that, and they were nervous and like, what do I call him? And me and my buddy at the same time, not mean, but just very concise and like, you call him Mr. Howe. That's what you call him. You call him Mr. Howe. We went up there, took a picture of him punching my friend in the face. It was great.
Oh, that's awesome. I just got a text from a friend who wanted me to share this story too. This is it's another famous player from kind of a little bit after the era. But anyway, he was playing in, and I know I've shared the story before, but this is Gordie Howe Day, so we'll share it really quickly. Gordie, Phil Esposito, a bunch of other people were playing in this charity tournament against some firemen. It was up in Ontario somewhere, and it was just one of these typical charity games, and they were old timers. And this is not that long ago. I'm talking like 15 years ago. So Gordie was in his 70s. And they were playing, and they were bouncing around, and as it typically happens sometimes when you play against these older guys like that, this is like a fireman. It's a chance for him to play against Gordie Howe. Phil Esposito, he's going to be he's throwing his body around a little bit, and too much, like Phil was like, listen, guys, we're old men here, we're out here to have fun, but we do have to throw hits, we have to throw checks, and as he was there, boom, boom, boom. It goes right, and Gordie Howe just flattens him. Gordie Howe flattens the kid in the background. You hear him hit the ground. Boom. He turns around, and Gordie's like, "Take it easy on us," like that. And the kid's like writhing in pain on the ground. That's pretty awesome. I mean, pretty awesome.
Well, I mean, funny is like Gordie Howe left the NHL in '71. He retired, and then he went to the WHA for 6 seasons. And when he came back to Hartford in '79-80. And I think he was like 5th or 6th on the team in scoring.
Yes.
I went as a 12-year-old, went to a Sabres Hartford Whalers game, and this was in early March, and it was after they had acquired Bobby Hull from Winnipeg.
Right.
So, and Bobby, and it was funny because I remember
thinking like '79 here around then.
Yeah, it was March of '80. It was February of '80 that he was acquired, and the thing was, it's like Bobby Hull only played 9 games for the Whalers. He had 7 points in 9 games, and most of the time that he was there, the line was Howe, Keon, and Hull all together on the same line. And I was at that game, and I'm like, I didn't, being a 12-year-old, you don't exactly grasp what you're seeing. You just see 3 sort of older veteran guys playing. But basically, I mean, I saw, you could say in terms of their careers, like the greatest line of individuals put together at one point. And I'm pretty sure that Bobby Hull and Gordie scored a goal that night. I'm trying to remember. I mean, it's 35 years ago for me.
For sure.
But I distinctly remember the game and remember them playing together, and it was against against a Sabre team that went to the conference final. So it was for a 12-year-old kid, it was something to see, and that was the only time I ever saw him live in person.
How about you, Ty?
Well, as you know, I'm the resident baby of the Hockey Buzz family, so
yes, you are.
I never saw him play, and I didn't really see him around Boston too much. But my grandmother, back in the '70s, they used to live in Texas, along with my mother and my 3 uncles. They all lived in Texas and Houston. And there were nights where Gordie Howe would babysit my mother and my uncles, and he would show them hockey movies. Like, he would show them old hockey clips. This is while all the adults that lived in I think it was an apartment complex of some sort.
Yeah.
This is why all the adults went to like the disco, like the dance hall.
Unbelievable.
Gordie Howe would stay there and watch all the kids. He loved being around the kids. He was very influential in the youth hockey community in Texas throughout the '70s as well. But he was a guy that my grandmother, to this day, I shared our story on Facebook that he had passed away. It was the first thing my grandmother said, is that the Howes were a great family to know. They were such good people, and that's really what stuck out. I think when you hear these Gordie Howe stories, you don't think about the legendary player as much as you do the amazing person, and that's when you know that this guy truly was a larger-than-life figure in the game of hockey and beyond.
Yeah, I included a clip.
That's awesome.
I included a clip on my blog of when Gordie had the stroke in October of 2014. A lot of people thought he was he was going to die at that point, and then the miraculous thing that happened with the stem cells gave him some extra time. Keith Olbermann was had a show on ESPN, and he did a like a 5-minute retrospective about Gordie Howe and interactions that he had with him as a 10-year-old, and then when he was working at ESPN. And I'm not the biggest fan of Keith Olbermann, but it was really great because it caught the type of person that Gordie Howe was, the quality person that he was, and the legend that he was. And it's just, 88 years is a very full life, but we've lost somebody today. It's really a really important part of this game.
Wow, yeah, for sure. Wow, that's something. And man, I guess he was in Houston at the time, right? Because the Houston Arrows were down there.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
With Mark Howe. Did Gordie play for the Houston Arrows? I thought Mark did.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Yep.
Gordie did too. Okay.
They all did. They all did.
They all did. Oh man, that's something. Yeah, that's really. And to talk about the player for a second, I mean, he really did change the game. He was
4 years in Houston, 4 years.
Okay, there you go.
He actually had 3 99-point seasons in 4 years, 99 or higher.
Wow.
And that's when he was in his late 40s.
I know. He's just like.
Well, he's the prototype of the power forward in hockey. I mean,
and he changed things. I mean, he was terrifying to play against. I mean, players tell you this that to play against him. He was not just good and scary and big, but he was terrifying to play against. And what's funny is is in retrospect, I remember talking to Kevin about how big he was. He was huge. Gordie Howe was huge. You know how big he was? He was exactly the same size and weight as Peter Forsberg. Peter Forsberg is a pretty big player, but you don't think of him as I mean, we have players in the NHL now that are bigger than Peter Forsberg, right?
Right. We did.
But it's fascinating how that whole thing went down.
You're talking about a league that the average size at that point was probably 5'8" or 5'9".
Oh yeah. No, it was tie sized. It was tie sized back then. Yep. Yeah, for sure.
I was born too late. Damn it.
You were born too late. I know.
Actually, no. I don't want to go against Gordie Howe.
He was something. No. I mean. He was and people don't realize, like, when he was sick like that and he got that stem cell stuff. I was fortunate having known Scoop and I was hearing all the updates as they were happening, and Gordie was embarrassed about that. Actually, he was embarrassed. He didn't want it out there that he was going to this experimental treatment type thing. He thought that people were going to think he was a quack or something like that. So. But as time went on and it worked, people were convinced. You have to share this experience you had. This is something. I mean, this is really pretty amazing. And so then he was okay sharing it, but we were not allowed to talk about it at all. He's doing better, but you can't say why. And it was really interesting. Yeah. So a tough loss for the hockey world. And between that and Muhammad Ali, this week's been crazy.
I think Howe is the last living legend of sorts when it comes to the world of hockey, because we have the exposure to everybody now. It's like I can watch every Wayne Gretzky goal on the internet.
Right.
It's like
good point.
With Howe there was that legendary status that guys like Eddie Shore had. Where it's like
Bellevaux maybe too.
Yeah, it's like they had this sort of this Paul Bunyan like.
The old black and white.
Babe Ruth. You're thinking of that was a different era, like the classic the golden age of hockey. And he was the last. He was the patriarch of that.
I mean, there's nobody of his level anymore. But I mean, like I can say for Toronto, like a Hall of Famer like Johnny Bauer, who's in his 90s and is still alive, and he was actually interviewed on Toronto radio because they were both born in Saskatchewan. He was very friendly with Gordie Howe, so he had some stories to tell. And Davey Keon and Frank Mahovlich, a lot of those players. But he was the top of the heap. He was at that point.
He was legendary. I mean, you could argue that Richard in Montreal was maybe as equal legendary. Like his
Paul in Chicago
in a different way, but definitely. And the funny thing was, it's so ironic because last night I was talking to somebody after the game. We were having dinner, and I thought last night, this is a transition into the game last night. I thought Malkin last night played the best hockey game I've ever seen him play. Malkin last night was off the charts crazy, and there were moments last night that he was as dominant and as big. There was somebody who tried to throw a check at him, and at one point, and the guy threw all of his weight. He talk about leaving his feet. He left his feet. He jumped into the air. He did everything he could to try to check him, and he bounced off of Malkin. And Malkin stopped for a second, didn't lose control of the puck, was stopped, what are you doing, and skated on. It was just. And when I was talking to somebody afterward, they're comparing it to that's how Gordie Howe was back in his day to everybody else. That this was the kind of player And Malkin might be the only player in the league who sort of has that ability to do that right now. He's that strong. And
Is the frustrating thing is you don't see it consistently.
oh yeah, no, but you definitely saw it last night. I mean, he was playing like that was his last game in Pittsburgh. He was playing hard, and he was really. I mean, it could be, but yeah, the whole thing. It was something else to watch that play out last night. But let's get into the game last night. You guys just don't listen to me enough. Is problem, I mean, come on.
Don't give me that. Don't give me that stuff.
I'm on board with you.
Thank you.
But,
I mean, I yesterday said that the Sharks would win this game, and I said I could not imagine a game. I could not remember a game in my lifetime ever where nobody was picking a team to win in a Stanley Cup final, where every person imaginable had the Penguins. And when that happens, whenever that happens, even a slightly level, not to this level, but even slightly, you know what's going to happen. We've been around hockey long enough to know.
Because in the first 4 games, the San Jose Sharks showed up in drips and drabs and didn't show up and put a complete effort. And last night was the best effort that they put forth in the series so far. And they did what I said that they had to do, which was get physical. They got nasty, and they had to get. I mean, honestly, the thing I don't understand is this is the Stanley Cup final. You should be opening up your soul basically and trying to, and guys like Brent Burns, he was a little snippy, he was a little cheap, he was a little dirty. This is a Stanley Cup final. If you want to win the championship, you got to do that. And they really, guys like Polak, who he's not a very effective defenseman, but he was hitting. There were some other players who were laying some lumber. There was a lot of scrums after the whistle. They have not, in the first 4 games, they did not make the Pittsburgh Penguins pay for anything that they did, and last night they did. And that
they did. And there was I got to set the stage for you though. I mean, you heard about it on TV. How many people were outside this reading it? It was unbelievable though. I mean, to be there. It was a little bit frightening. Like there were so many people, and to get into the stadium, we had to be guided by security people to get as a media person to get in. I mean, I think there were 100,000 people outside that arena, easy, and they had opened up another section they put another screen in a park across town that was like the B place to go to watch this game.
Oh, wouldn't that hurt the ratings?
I know. So terrible for hockey to have.
NBC must have been pissed. Well,
how dare a bunch of people from a city coalesce in a park and cheer on a sporting team when but when they're all in their house divided by 4, that's gonna or 3, that's gonna basically affect 30 to 40,000 homes. It affects 30 to 40,000 homes. That's nothing.
That you say this is so funny because to be honest, I thought that's what I kept thinking. I'm like, there's all these people that just live in Pittsburgh that are they're just fans, but they live in Pittsburgh. If you lived in Pittsburgh last night, you could not know what was going on. Like there was no way, no matter who you were, you realized. I mean, you had to realize what was happening, and it was set up. I mean, it was set up for a bad. I mean, it was. The Penguins came out flat. Obviously, they were nervous, and you know what? To be honest,
they were nervous. Yeah,
both goalies were nervous in the first. That's what I felt, and I said for the first time we're seeing that these 2 goalies are young, and because this is one thing to play, in the playoffs, it's another thing to play in Stanley Cup Finals. It's another thing to play with a cup in the building. That's a whole nother ball of wax, and you could see that they were really nervous about it.
Yeah, but somebody in our group chat was saying Reimer when it was tied. When it was tied, was you okay? When it was tied 2-2.
Yeah, and that's such a Mike thing to do too. I was disappointed in that. That's such a Mike thing.
The only reason I said that, is because if you remember, I had a vision of how the Sharks would win this series, and James Reimer would be in goal when they won it. I didn't know how it would get there.
I'm not saying
that they should. I mean, Martin Jones was unbelievable, but I still have this vision that I feel bad. Maybe Jones has to wrap himself in bubble wrap or something's bad's gonna happen to him because I still feel like the Sharks win the Stanley Cup with Reimer going. I don't know why.
Well, it's funny, because our friend Brian Metzer took a picture outside of the Council Energy Center last night. Apparently, somebody had left a couch outside in the park, and they were there to enjoy it, and then they basically, out of frustration, just left the couch. So
surprised they didn't light it on fire.
You have to give the Penguins fans credit for this game, though, because honestly, they were awesome, and for me to feel bad about a Penguins loss, and I honestly did as the game was going. I mean, for me to feel bad about that's just going against every grain of my body, having been taught to hate the Penguins from being a young child. But you did feel bad. I did have to feel bad. They were really loud. I mean, they were loud through the falling behind 2-0. That didn't even phase them at all. It was as if, and to their credit, they kept it going, and then the Penguins, picked it up and got the 2 goals right back. And that's where the game turned, because when Kessel hits both posts with that shot, that's the moment, because people are like, oh, Jones was great, and Jones was great. Jones won the game. And I said to him afterwards, I'm like, what's it feel like to be one guy and you ruin the party of all these people? I said, you are the reason. You are the reason they go on, because it was Jones, no question about it, right?
That was like the first time he stole a game in the playoffs, too. He stole that game last night.
I couldn't remember, and I talked to Russ about it, too. We were sitting next to each other last night. I could not remember a game where a goalie could possibly be eliminated from winning the Stanley Cup who played that well, that stole a game like that in that situation. I couldn't really remember. I mean, that was something.
I mean, Ty, I think that Jones has played better than Murray in 4 of the 5 games. It's just that the team in front of him hasn't played better in 4 of the 5 games.
Yeah, and I think this has sort of been the theme of the Penguins throughout the playoffs, is that when they lose, you feel like the other team was lucky to win.
Yeah.
Like, I think last night I felt that the Sharks were very lucky to escape that game with a victory.
Yeah.
Based on the fact that they go up 2-0 on the road in a must-win in 3 minutes, and then they piss it all away in about 2.5. It's like, that's very tough to recover from.
Yeah.
And then they get the lead back, but then you talk about, Kessel, and you have these other great chances that are denied by Jones, and you walk away from that saying, okay, the Penguins should have won that game. I felt that way every single game the Lightning won in the 3rd round. I was like, wow, the Lightning were lucky to win this game.
Yeah.
And it's funny how, like, it comes back, though, I think, to the goaltender on the other team has typically played pretty well.
Right.
It's just that the Penguins forwards do such a great job of disrupting what the other team can do. Their 5-man unit, no matter if they load up on star power like the Sharks can do with all their guys, especially in the power play, or even the depth. Like Roman Polak has been exposed in this series. I think some of the Sharks' bottom 3rd and 4th line guys have been exposed in this series. It's the Penguins can make you look real ugly, and it does come back to that goaltender. And last night, Martin Jones is one that steals it.
Well, it's funny, Ty, because you look at the only time in this series where I thought Pittsburgh was out of control and almost in a panic was in the first 10 minutes of the first period last night. I thought that San Jose, there was an air of desperation, and maybe it's what Eck was saying a couple days ago, where they have to play like they're not afraid to lose. I mean, their back is against the wall, but you for the first time I thought saw that Pittsburgh defense panicked. And once the thing was, it's like, I'm surprised that the way that first 10 minutes was. I mean, that was the best hockey I think we've seen, maybe in the playoffs this year. Then all of a sudden it was just like it was the Martin Jones show, and there was until the empty net goal, there really wasn't that game stopped at that point, and then it settled down into the chess match again.
You're dead on, and Burns when scoring that first goal totally exposed the Penguins defense on that goal, because he went around 3 players, and because of his size and his speed, they didn't want to touch him. If you watch the defensemen on the Penguins team, they're not. That's a different, like, there's nobody that size in the forwards, and the only player they have like that, is Joe Thornton, and he doesn't play that game. So Burns is flying on the side, and honestly, Hurdle, which is killing them, not having Hurdle in there.
Yeah. Right, because Hurdle can do that too.
Yeah,
What's funny is if I'm going through our group text from last night, and at 8:26, Mike starts singing "Do You Know the Way to San Jose," and then Eck texts, "When will you people start listening to me?" Okay, so that is at 8:26, and now at 8:35, Eck types "Rhymer," and Mike texts, "Sharks are in trouble." That was all. So in the course of 11 minutes, that's how the timeline changed.
That's what it was. I mean, it was crazy. That building went from...
I was driving during this, so this was hilarious.
And Jillian was basically saying, if I'm flipping through Twitter, that's the reason why San Jose is allowing goals.
No, they were. That was it was crazy, the Penguins could have scored 5 more goals. I mean, they could have. They tied the game was crazy. They had, Cullen slaps one off the post right before Kessel does, and Cullen's, Jones was totally out of position on. Because it was one of those perfect. We had the perfect angle from where we were looking down there, and I could see straight on where Cullen was. I saw the whole net wide open. I'm like, why is Jones over there? Puck goes off the post, and out. It was that close. And if the Penguins got a third goal there and had taken it after, like you're saying, Ty, after they had fallen down 2-0, if that's 3-2 Penguins all of a sudden, that's game's over.
Well, let me pose a question here, because we were not going to be together again until Monday, when Game 6 will be in the rear view window, and
Yep.
it will either be facing a Game 7 or the series will be over with.
Yep.
If Pittsburgh loses Game 6, they're going to start Murray in Game 6. If they lose Game 6,
No, they can't start Fleury.
I mean,
No, they can't do that.
But he's lost 2 games in a row. He did not play well in Game 5.
He did. There were moments though. He made a couple huge saves last night as the game went on. He had a tough beginning. I was talking to Boucher about it afterwards too, and he said, like the Burns goal, he thinks that the Sharks have figured out something, and what the Sharks have figured out is
Short
go
side.
take the puck around the net, take a puck around the net. You throw
Yes.
Murray off his angle. Murray does not keep his angle well. It's like think of the overtime goal. The Donskoy goal, right? That goal
Yes.
comes around. Burns goal, the same thing last night.
Well,
Same
they showed a video compilation of goals on Murray, and if you notice, every one of them is sort of, it's not high, it's not low, it's
here.
it's in between the
between.
glove and the pad.
Yep.
On the glove side, and he's
And the blocker too. I've noticed it's above the pad and below the blocker, which is you can ask every goalie, that's an uncomfortable save. But it seems like underneath their armpit, basically armpit area, is where the goals are going in.
But Murray does that that thing I call open hockey goalie sometimes, which is really like when someone goes around the net, open hockey goalies always just go to their knees and they wait, they sit there and they wait, and that's how Donskoy scores, and that's what happens last night.
Well, the Burns goal was a short side goal.
It was a short side goal, but again, he was already down when Burns took the shot, and that in that situation, the Donskoy goal you could sort of forgive him for. That was a good shot. It deflected off of somebody on the way in, but the Burns goal was like a straight short side goal.
Yeah.
That he's got to stop. So he did look scared. He looked nervous, but he did, to his credit, he did make a couple huge saves, including one in the third period that I thought, man, if the Penguins came back and tied it, we would all be talking about that save.
I feel like both goalies after the first 10 minutes rebounded and had good games.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that if I was Sullivan, I would put Fleury in a Game 7. That would take a humongous size set of whats, but it would
also be dumb.
It would also be dumb.
That's that too.
But if Murray doesn't play well in Game 6.
They just have to deal with it.
You can't. You have to. You can't bring in a goalie who's played one game in 60 days. You can't. It's not fair. It's not fair to Fleury either.
I guess
it's Fleury too.
Jeff Sadkoff.
It's also Fleury. It's like remember Fleury is not. You're not looking at emotional stability there as it is, so you're going to put him into that situation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just. I mean, the one thing about Murray is he does rebound well from goals, and he's very. Both these goalies are very dry to talk to.
Really, I'm playing the devil's advocate here. I'm just saying.
I know, but
I know.
I think that this is like as kind of as strong as I felt about the Penguins winning, the Sharks winning Game 5. I sort of feel the same way about the Penguins winning Game 6. I really think that this is. This is the Penguins' game to win, and the Sharks, would have to get incredibly lucky to win Game 6, I think, because the Penguins are going to come in hard. I mean, the one thing that we talked about, when I talked about how they had the crazy circus of flying people around, like that had to happen last night. I saw it in motion, because I went down right by the media room is like where the parents, I would call it the parents' room, because usually like the hockey players' parents or their wives and stuff like that is right there, and there were hundreds of people. These are all the people that would have been on the ice, if the Stanley Cup was won, and they're all there. Because they're all down visiting the players, and stuff like that, and they're all getting on flights, and they're all heading to San Jose, and there's a lot of pressure on in that situation. And then of course if the Sharks win, all those Sharks players will come to Pittsburgh. So yeah, the Stanley Cup in the room is a whole new ball of wax. It's very, very difficult, and you could see it. You could see it with the Penguins. They were not ready. There was so much adrenaline going through both of those teams. And I think it had a lot to do with the fact that what was going on outside, just the hype of everything. That when those teams came down and scored those 4 goals in the first 6 minutes, that was just adrenaline. Those teams were flying on adrenaline, and then they crashed, and it was really funny to watch. In the second period, that adrenaline, that sugar high was gone.
Yeah.
And about midway through the second period, the Sharks were lucky, really lucky, because the last 6 minutes of the second period, the Sharks were spent. Totally spent. It looked like everything that they'd emptied the tank already, and I'm like they're up by 1 goal with 6 minutes left in the second period, and I'm sitting there. There's no way they're going to hold this lead for 26 more minutes. I mean, but they got just enough energy in between the second and third to come out. But if they had to survive those last few minutes of the second period, and that was when you saw really the Penguins unleashed the wrath of God on them. I mean, it was crazy, and yet that's when Jones made so many great saves, and it was a surrealistic game to attend because of all the craziness, and then because of the way it went. But the Penguins fans, I'm going to give you huge credit. They through the whole game. They completely, even in the last 2 minutes, everybody sort of had a sense that the Penguins were going to score. They had to score, right? I mean, there's just no way. And I was even saying it to Eric next to me. I'm like, I'm the guy who picked the Sharks, remember? And I'm like saying, the Sharks are not going to. This game's going to overtime, or the Sharks are going to lose. I said, there's no way they can hold them this long.
I think we're going to a Game 7. I really do.
So?
I do too. I feel that way too, Ty.
I think there's going to be a feeling similar to what, and I keep coming back to this, 2011 Bruins.
Yeah.
When I got back to their building, it was the first time it had been in Boston, the cup in the building in so long.
Yep.
They said, no one's lifting this cup in our building. And the Sharks have had their struggles at home this year. We all know that throughout the regular season and whatnot. But I really think that veteran group knows that they have been through so much the past half decade that this cannot end with another team lifting the Stanley Cup in their building. It's better to lose it in 7 than to lose it in 6 on your home ice. Believe me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Bill Mazeroski may be safe for now, but if they go back for Game 7 and then Pittsburgh wins there, then that 56-year record, or whoever won the last game in Pittsburgh for a championship may be over with. But I mean, the thing was, I expected that big response from the Sharks in Game 3 and Game 4, and it wasn't there. Now maybe coming off of this game, and maybe they found something that they can, a chink in the armor with the Penguins that they can exploit it. But they really have to come out with their hair on fire in Game 6, and they really have to press the Penguins physically. Rub the glove in Crosby's face, get him pissed off. I think what Vlasic did at the end of the game is what you have to do. You have to get underneath the other team's skin, and they go ahead, Dan.
Well, not this Penguins team per se, but past Penguins teams, you could agitate them and they would get off their game. Yeah. I know Travis Hamonic had this knack for making Evgeny Malkin forget about playing hockey and just try and kill him for 60 minutes. So these past, not so much now. They're more disciplined than they were the past couple of years. But that's what the Sharks have to get them thinking about retribution and not playing hockey.
Yeah, and Brent Burns, he freight trained. He didn't freight train him, but he was abusing Patrick Hornquist in front of the goal. I mean, he punched him 3 or 4 times. I mean, really, you have to make it painful for these guys to go to the front of the net and pick up rebounds. That it's just what you have to do. And if you don't do it, and they're able to go there without pain, without negative reinforcement, you're just begging to be beaten.
Yep. I mean, I agree with that series, Ty, but I've got another one. I think that it goes way back further, but this is another series that this reminds me of, and that is the Flyers '87 Oilers series, because there was Flyers and Oilers in '87. The Oilers came out, they won Game 1 4-2. The game was tied late, like it was. They scored with about 3 minutes left, just like we saw the Penguins do. The second game, the Oilers win 3-2 in overtime, just like the Penguins did. Right. Then it went to Philly, and Philly manages a 5-3 win, which was basically another 4-3, and then where the Sharks win that Game 3 in overtime. Right. Game 4, the Oilers just take it to the Penguins. The Oilers take it to the Flyers. They win. And then Game 5. And in Game 5, I remember this, and this was going up to Edmonton and this is like one of the greatest teams of all time. We're talking everybody: Gretzky, Curry, Coffey, Anderson, Fuhrer. And this is the Flyers team. It's okay, but and they're a good team, but they don't belong in the same rank. And everybody was saying that. They were like saying, just like everyone was saying, the Penguins were going to win, because the Penguins have the speed. The Oilers had the speed on the Flyers, and in Game 5 it was close until goals by Doug Crossman and Pelle Eklund.
Oh God!
at the end of that game. Right at the very end, the Flyers win that game 4-3. Rick Tocchet scores a goal. Hextall stands on his head in goal for the Flyers, just like we saw last night with Jones. He goes back to Game 6, and this is the greatest game I've ever attended. At Game 6 in Philadelphia, the Oilers had a 2-0 lead going into the third, and the Flyers managed to pull it out with 3 goals in the third.
Well, I mean, here's one that Ty was actually alive for and probably was shaking a rattle at that point. But it's
2012. No.
It's 1994. I mean, Russ talked about it.
Yeah.
The Rangers were up 3-1 against the Canucks. They thought they were home and cooled out. They came over to Madison Square Garden. They lost Game 5. They went back to Vancouver. They lost Game 6. And then with the pressure on, they win Game 7 at MSG. It could play out like that. I mean,
that Game 5 specifically, I remember that, Mike. It was like a coronation. It was the Rangers' coronation. The Cup was in the building. This is the first time since 1940. It was supposed to end that night, and the Canucks stepped on them.
A lot of pressure. That pressure is so intense when that situation happens. It takes you to another level. It really does.
Right, and the pressure is directly on the Penguins for Game 6. They want to close this out. They don't want to go to a Game 7 after being up 3-1. But if San Jose wins, then the pressure's on both of them. So it's even.
And if it does go to a Game 7, I think the idea of an advantage kind of goes out the window because this would be the longest traveling schedule of sorts for the Penguins. They faced all playoffs long, whereas the Sharks.
Yeah.
Not that they had an easier schedule, I would say, but I think you look at what they had to get to go through to get there. Such as they had to go to St. Louis and Nashville as well. So that's a little bit easier than staying in California for 3 rounds and having to do this. They may be more adjusted to the travel than the Penguins would be.
And isn't Game 7 if they do win in Game 6? Isn't it Wednesday?
It's Wednesday, so another 2 games off. I do like the schedule for the finals though, because by this time teams are spent. I do actually think it makes sense that they have these.
I think it improves the quality of the hockey.
It does because otherwise. But Brent Burns last night said clearly he thinks it's an advantage of the Penguins because of what you said, Ty. Because they're getting the extra day there, where if they weren't getting the extra day, the Sharks would be used to that extra day of playing, and the Penguins would be hurting a lot more. I mean, remember what the Sharks did with the Predators, which is only like a half-hour shorter flight than it is to go to Pittsburgh. It's not like a big difference there. So, what they did with the Predators, they were playing every other night until the very last game of the series when they came back to San Jose and had 2 days off, which they said benefited the Sharks at the time because the Predators had won those. They had a couple of those epic overtime games in that series. So, that was a good one. Yeah, it's really going to be fun. My rumors for today that I have before we get out of here is this is pretty fascinating, but I hear there's lots of talk about Columbus moving off the 3rd pick. Okay, which is pretty, and that they're very seriously listening to enter offers, that they are entertaining concepts here. This is obviously this is the pick for Harvey probably.
Well, this is the thing, Ak, and I picked up some of this at the combine. The Blue Jackets are looking to replace Ryan Johansson with their 1st-round pick. But after Matthews, the next 3 or 4 picks are wingers. Puljärvi's a winger. Maybe he can play center, but he hasn't played at center a lot, if at all, in Finland. Dubois is more a winger than a center, but there are some people who believe he could play center. There's the stock of a guy like Logan Brown is rising in the 1st round. That's the son of former NHLer Jeff Brown, but not to the point that they would maybe take them at 3. So maybe they're looking to trade down to a lower part of the top 10, and they can take one of those players there. That's what I think is going on here. But it's a question of what they can get in return. I mean, I'm sure they don't want to go too far down in the 1st round because then they may not get the guy that they want.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, they have a lot of things. The Blue Jackets are definitely in a tough spot right now because think about this. Think about Kekalainen's career in there so far. They comes in there and they have probably their best year ever in the 1st year. They play against the Penguins and they had the great epic series against the Penguins, really really good, and then out of nowhere, the next season they just get devastated by injuries. They collapse, they fall apart, they have all kinds of injuries. They fight hard to the end, and then this year they get people back, but they can never get back into the groove that they were in. So now they're in this really weird spot where they've got to do something significant. This Kukalainen's fighting for his job, basically. It's what's going to happen here, and he's a good GM, and he's made some really interesting moves, but he's not necessarily his fault, but he is where he is, especially because they've had goaltending injuries last year. They had all kinds of things happen, but he is definitely in a spot now where. And this rumor comes out of a couple places, and also someone just texted me as I said the rumor that Aaron Portzline wrote today that he was told Columbus Blue Jackets have received at least 2 offers for the number 3 pick, both for very legitimate offers worth considering, but not enough to sway Kukalainen and company yet.
Right. I mean, they have to get themselves I would say they'd have to get a first round pick within the top, say, 12.
But remember this. This is the point of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Portzline works for a newspaper that also owns the Blue Jackets.
Yes.
So when Portzline comes out with a report like this,
that's a great point. Yeah.
This is the Blue Jackets saying we're listening. This is what
there's smoke. There's definitely smoke there. Yeah.
They make an offer. We're listening.
And there are not many teams right now that are really into trading down. So if they sell it out there that they're interested, they may get a firestorm of teams. But the thing is, if they could move down into like maybe the lower part of the top 10 or maybe the 11 or 12, something in that area, that opens up guys like Clayton Keller, like Brown, like Michael McLeod, which would fit what they're looking for in terms of center. But they probably would be getting themselves a good player on top of that pick, and that's what they have to do. Their defense is starting to come around with Werenski coming into the fold, with Seth Jones and with Matt and with Brian Murray, but they need more scoring and they need to replace Johansson.
Yeah, no, Werenski's a great player.
It's funny if you look at the Lake Erie Monsters obviously are in the Calder Cup final here. You look at that roster. I mean, if some of those guys, it's not a roster of all AHL journeymen. They got some young pieces there that if they can make the jump, they could be competitive.
Sonny Milano, isn't he down there?
Yeah, Milano, Kirby Reichel, Anderson. Right. Yeah, they've got some players. Yeah,
and that's the other kid run by came up at the end of the year too. There's another kid.
Yeah. Funny, that team is being run by Bill Zito, who was the assistant GM of them, and I was talking to him the other day about this, and that team is really, Zito among there's a couple other these rising young assistant GMs that are, you can see the next wave that are coming along. He's taken that team really from. They weren't all that great last year. They weren't even there, right? They were in Springfield, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
And now they've really come on strong. So that's a big situation for there. I agree. Now the other thing is Nicholas Backstrom, the goalie, has signed in Finland.
Not surprising.
Oh, sorry, Bjorkstrand. Oliver Bjorkstrand. Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
I mean,
it's not surprising. Nick Backstrom has been the goalie. I always have to say the goalie has been.
Talk about the weirdest situation in the league. He was healthy for the entire year basically, and didn't play a game for the Wild, and allowed his no trade clause to be waived so he could be traded to Calgary. I think it was for David Jones at the deadline. And it just seemed that I don't know what the full reason was. I know that he had a number of injuries over the last couple of years, and they had Dubnyk and they had Kemper, so they really didn't have any place for him. But he was basically a healthy scratch for like 70 games.
Yeah.
So why would he come back to the? I mean, unless Calgary was going to say we're going to make you our number one goaltender, which obviously they're not. They weren't going to do.
No, they have Kari Ramo.
He's yes, the great Kari Ramo, who's a UFA and won't get signed by anyone.
Did you guys see the Onion story about the NHL and the Stanley Cup?
No.
So it's just a quick little thing I'll read for you. The NHL, the title of the story is "The NHL admits it has no idea who the guys with the white gloves transporting the Stanley Cup are." So it's confessing that they're unable to explain the presence of 2 men who always accompany the championship trophy. Officials from the NHL admitted Friday that they have absolutely no idea who the guys with the white gloves carrying the Stanley Cup actually are. That they just showed up after the Oilers won Game 7 in the '87 Finals. There's a throwback to the '87 Finals again. That's crazy. Holding the Stanley Cup as they walk onto the ice for the trophy presentation. It was only later that we realized no one ever hired them or asked them to do that.
I did see that ESPN posted a bunch of the NHL emblems that blinged up like Las Vegas.
I saw that.
And I thought, yeah, but it's surprising that they didn't touch some of like the original 6 ones. I think that the only one that they did, I think, was Detroit. They used a roulette wheel in place of the spoked wheel.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
There's some good stuff there. I mean, and the funny thing is the thing about Vegas that you realize when you're at these like events with all these other NHL people is that everybody's like, oh, I can't wait. You know, you can tell, this is going to be fans. You know, the Islanders are playing in Vegas. We're going to Vegas.
Let's
You know,
go. Yeah, I mean, I got friends
It's
in
gonna be
LA too.
unbelievable.
I go, it's easy. I go to Vegas and I'll swing over, see my friends in LA. That's perfect.
yeah, everybody's going to be going to Vegas to watch these teams. It's like incredible. Everybody
We
talks
can do a
about it.
show from there. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These northeastern teams are going to beg the NHL to have their game in Vegas scheduled for December, January, and February, because there will be thousands of fans who will hop the Southwest flight from Buffalo to Vegas, the direct
Right.
flight, and go to that game.
Yeah, it's so
There's
cheap
also
to fly to Vegas.
a really good Vegas hockey podcast. I was a guest on there a couple weeks ago.
Really?
They've been doing that for a few months now. Yeah, they've already the buzz is there, and obviously, if when they become a team, one of those guys will be a great writer for us.
That would be great. I'd love that. It'd be nice to have a Vegas Raider already in place. That would be shocking. Yep, I could take sure. Sounds good to me. That is all the time we have for today, folks. We'll be back again on Monday, and at that point, we'll know a lot. We'll either have a Stanley Cup champion.
That's a tease, people.
Go
That's
on
a
on a-
professional tease.
That's a professional
Go
team.
out
We'll either
on a
have a
limb,
Stanley Cup
Agatha.
champion.
Go out on a limb.
We'll have a Stanley Cup champion, or I'll be heading back to Pittsburgh, back on the turnpike again. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be, like I said, my pick right now. I'm going with the Penguins in this one. What do you got? What about you guys?
Prediction
Prediction for
Pain.
Sunday. Hi, you said you're going with San Jose, right?
Yeah, I'm going San. Hey, listen, I picked San Jose at the start of the series. I can't back out now. I'm in too deep. It's just
I did too, but I'm
going
back.
down with the ship.
I'm with Tom with that as well. I think
I'll go with San Jose in Game 6 because I picked Pittsburgh.
What the hell? No, I'm the only one picking. Why must I be the outlier all the time? I'm picking the Penguins and I'm the outlier.
we're actually listening to you for once. We're all taking the Sharks, and now you're going
You're not
against
listening
it.
to me again. Again, you're not. I'm saying the Penguins. I'm not the problem here. Anyway, remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We'll talk to you soon.